Hey y'all, Akira here, and I'm joined by Nuan from Movieslinger Reviews. Hey man, what's up?
Hey man, yep, doing all right, doing all right.
Yeah, so we are here today to talk about Assassin's Creed as a franchise, where the series has been and where they're taking the series, and more or less how the series, the franchise actually affected us as gamers. How did Assassin's Creed kind of affected us? I didn't really get into the franchise until the second game came out, right? Because I had
Hmm.
a go at the first title. I didn't really like it back then. For some reason, back in 2007, I was like, okay, this is good, but not technically something that I'll enjoy. I think I have like a couple of hours worth of, experience with it. What about you, Nuan? Like, how was
Yeah,
your...
that was my first experience of Assassin's Creed, the very first game. I remember seeing all the trailers and the demos and getting really hyped up. And my brother got me a copy of the game on PS3 at the time.
Uh-huh.
And I remember the first few hours of that game were like really awesome. We've never had anything like that. And sure, it got repetitive and annoying in the late
Yeah.
game, which is probably what turned you off. And there was a lot of like copy pasted content, right?
Locations and
But
environment, right? So, yeah.
yeah, and the missions were like very like very kind of repetitive. But I remember the concept was brilliant, and the first game I feel like had the core pillars of what makes an Assassin's Creed game.
Yeah.
They had everything in that first game, and on the gameplay side you had the parkour, with really complex animations that we have never seen anything like that, right? And then there was the social stealth and hidden blade assassinations and large open city environments with hundreds of npcs. The crowds were really impressive, right? And and on the story side, the first game, uh, actually all the games, right, one of the core pillars is that it's set in a time period which is usually about to experience some kind of a chaotic event like a war or a revolution. So in the first game, it was the Crusades. Later it was the Renaissance and the American Revolution and
Yeah.
so on. And it was based on real history and real historic characters. It had the two protagonists, that are connected across time
Yeah.
through the animus. And then it introduced the precursor race right at the end, sort of.
Yeah.
And 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 um, and and it had a secret conflict, which I thought was really cool. The secret conflict between the Templars and the Assassins, which has
Yeah.
been going on for like hundreds of years. And this is all in the first game, Akira,
Yeah.
right? This is and everything I think that was uniquely Assassin's Creed was in the first game. And then we saw later on in the second game and the Ezio's trilogy. Maybe you can talk about this part where they refined everything,
Mhm.
right? So you first, I think your first real proper experience must have been the second game.
Yeah, like this just came to my mind when you talked about the historical, like Assassin's Creed as a franchise. They always prided
Hmm.
themselves as a franchise where they kind of try to be authentic, historically accurate and authentic as much as possible, which
Yes.
reminded me of the whole crossbow debacle in the first game. Remember in the trailer, there was this crossbow and
Oh
people, the
yeah.
fans, the people were like, no, this is not the thing. It can't be. So it was nowhere to be found in the game itself.
Yeah, but that may have been because they didn't have time to implement it or something. I'm not 100% sure how that
Probably,
happened.
right? I mean, it
Uh,
could have been a time issue, but it could have been
yeah,
like the
yeah, yeah.
backlash,
Could have
maybe.
been.
Could be
Could have
either
been.
one of
Could have
those.
been. Yeah, yeah.
Probably. But like when you look at it now, you realize how far they've come, and the historical accuracy and the authenticity is kind of is there, but it exists most of the time, right? So like
it
we're
exists
jumping
in
way
it
ahead.
exists in certain ways like architecture and stuff, I guess, uh but now it's heading towards more like mythology and stuff, right?
Yeah,
But
and
yeah.
mythology is mostly. Mythology would have been fine, but you have like flying unicorns spurting rainbows out of their faces, and all that, right? That's not. I mean, yeah, people might say, fine, it's a DLC. It's not like it's forcing you to play it, but it's still there, right? But like going back to the
The second game.
second game was something that I think second game was the one. Assassin's Creed 2 was the one of the first Assassin's Creed that I played from beginning to the end, right? I love what they did. Now, the couple of years, the time period that they had between the first one and the second, I think they refined a lot of things. The gameplay, the social stealth, the parkour was like well done, and the city and the locations were like amazing. Like they put a lot of
like
effort.
jaw-dropping.
Jaw-dropping. The scenery was very nice, right? And you remember they have introduced a little bit of micromanagement as well, as in remember
they introduced the economy, right?
Yes.
In the second game.
Side economy was present.
And the town, you can fix up the town.
Yes.
The shops and stuff. Yeah. They introduced all of that.
It was like,
and they introduced like, and I think they improved the biggest improvement was the characters and the story. I think
yes,
the storytelling.
Yeah,
to be more precise.
The protagonist.
Because Altair was like a bit of a boring protagonist, and then Ezio was like one of the best we've ever had.
I know people still love Ezio. Like whenever I see polls online where they talk about like who's your favorite Assassin's Creed protagonist, Ezio is always on top there, right on top of those lists, because people still love him as a character. So the second one and what followed, Brotherhood, I think up until Assassin's Creed 4 came, like that's Black Flag, Brotherhood was my favorite Assassin's Creed game. I mean, 2 was good, and people still say that 2 is like one of the best games. 2 is good. 2 kind of took things to 11, what they did in the first one, and they improved upon it. But for me, Brotherhood was kind of like that, one of those high points in the franchise where they introduced like some new mechanics, but tweaked some of the old stuff as well. The whole if it ain't broke, don't fix it theory. That's what they kind of did there, with the additional weapons, the gadgets, the gear, and certain mechanics. And Assassin's Creed had horrible mini games though. That now that I think of it, it kind of comes to my mind right now. Second one, and
it had the
and Brotherhood.
I think
the running thing. You remember the rooftop
which one was that?
Races, the rooftop races, you remember?
Oh, I never did those, so it was fine.
Like,
you don't have to do those. That's the great thing about the early games, that they don't force you to do everything.
Yeah.
And I remember like there was in Revelations, and actually your favorite you said was Brotherhood, but I think for me Revelations is a favorite for me. And in Revelations had one of the most annoying mini games, which was the tower defense. The infamous tower defense. But I figured out that you actually don't have to do it. You only have to do it once. And
when it's the tutorial, right? When they actually give you a tutorial about how.
So I figured out how to avoid it. So it never became an issue for me. And I guess that was Ubisoft chasing trends as usual, because tower defense was really big back in 2010, around that time.
Yeah.
But I think up to AC3, right, most of the changes seem to be additions.
Yeah.
And I feel like those core pillars that we talked about didn't really change. No. And it was I guess they didn't immediately start to tinker too much with what worked, right? Like you said.
They kind of stuck to the tried and tested formula for a while.
Yeah. And I think
I don't know whether you come across this in Assassin's Creed 3. Now, I saw this in many reviews as well. So back then, in the third game, sometimes there might be trees that you have to climb up, right? I mean, rather than in addition to the usual vantage points where you go and reveal the map, there were trees, I remember. So one of the biggest issues I had was once you climb up to the tree, you don't know which side you're supposed to jump off from, right? For the leap of faith,
really?
Right? And it's like 4 times out of 5, I end up smacked flat, on the ground by jumping onto the wrong side. Because the trees are there, it's very lush. You can't see like where you're supposed to jump, right? I mean, leaps of faith are usually very clear, and fine, this is a place
where the hay is,
right?
Yeah.
I was there.
I didn't have that problem. I don't remember that issue. There was some parts where I was looking for like collectibles, and there were like a few tricky moments.
Yeah.
Where in the mountains, I remember like there's a moment where I wasn't sure where I can jump, but I didn't have any issues with the trees.
The third one, one of the frustrating things I had with the third one was the homestead. You remember when you had to, again, it's a micro management thing of sorts, right? You had to send shipments, help your homesteaders out, all that. So
I mean, I didn't engage in a lot. I did engage in the training assassins thing in Revelations, where you can send assassins on missions and stuff.
Missions, yeah.
But
That was actually helpful, right? I mean, that actually played a key
because you can
part
call them, right? You can call them for help and stuff. But I think in Assassin's Creed 3, I did a few homestead missions and then I got really bored. I was like, I don't need to do this. And that was something I really liked. Like you don't have to do everything. You can just avoid what's boring. And it was, I think, in Black Flag where I first noticed the difference with them starting to tinker with the core pillars. Now I really liked Black Flag. It had a good story, but it didn't have a modern day protagonist. That's the very first time they did that. There was no equivalent of Desmond Miles. It was this weird first person thing where you walk around, with a voiceless, nameless
Abstergo
protagonist.
Industries, right? When they brought in Abstergo Industries as a video game developer, which is actually a front for the Templars, right? So
And one thing, Akira, is that I really hate voiceless protagonists because I mean it works for stuff like Doom, but
it works for Half-Life.
it works for certain types of games, but in Assassin's Creed, I really like that sometimes you got to see two people connect across time. One of the coolest moments in Revelations is when Desmond connects to Ezio, and then Ezio connects to Altair, and that's three protagonists, kind of like an Inception type, memory within a memory within a memory type thing, right? And you can't have that kind of satisfying character development and relationships with a voiceless protagonist. And we saw that in this kind of middle phase, with the Black Flag, Unity, and Syndicate, where they kind of got away, removed the dual protagonist thing. You were going to say something.
I was going to say, like, before we really get into Black Flag, I think you had nightmares about chasing sea shanties, right? I feel like
I really hated that. I chased one and then I was like, I don't it's just one of those things you don't have to do.
It's like you need music for your car radio or whatever, and you actually have to go out there chasing music, right? I mean, that's
why can't you go to a shop and buy that?
I know,
right? Why do you have to do this annoying mini game? And what was really funny to me was when Valhalla was coming out and the devs were talking about how they were bringing back old features that people loved. And they brought back the sea shanty thing, and I was like, it's not a sea shanty. It's like you have to run after something, right?
I think it's
I thought
Viking war song. I don't know, Viking
war song or something. I don't know what that was.
Ballads or something.
But I'm like, that's one of the most annoying things. Is that how you give something nostalgic to the fans? That's what you're gonna bring back?
Nobody asked for that, right?
I don't
think anybody wanted that.
and I thought, like, I did enjoy the kind of middle phase of the series, the Black Flag, Unity, and Syndicate, but but I think that the modern day storyline, which they didn't really pursue, I thought that had a lot of potential because they were setting up this thing called the Sage, where this guy who's being born every 100 years or whatever, and then Juno attempting to return to power, and this is really cool stuff, and it would have been much cooler if we could have participated in that drama with like a real character, but they kind of didn't do that, and they didn't really pursue that modern day story. Now I guess it kind of makes sense from the point that there's a lot of people who like the historical period and they don't really care about the modern day story, so they just want to go back in time. And so I guess Ubisoft was trying to appeal to that segment of the market, maybe. But I feel like the dual protagonist thing is such a core pillar, and removing it was so weird. And the newer games have gone back to that. Now you've played Odyssey, right? So they've gone back to that.
Origins and Odyssey with Leila Hazan. I think her name is Leila Hazan. So they try to what they kind of removed during the
The middle phase.
middle phase. Yeah, they kind of
Yeah.
bring it back here, but I don't think it resonated well with the audience though. Like nobody really people didn't really like playing as Desmond most of the time, but people liked Desmond as a protagonist, right? And the people around him.
Yeah.
But Leila Hassan, people don't really. Whenever I go online, read stuff on Reddit or like the reviews and stuff, people don't really like her character or resonate with her character. For some reason whatsoever, it's not that modern day protagonist that we've come to love, that we saw in someone like Desmond, right? I think that's the biggest
And
issue.
with Desmond, we saw like a real character development where in the
Yes.
beginning he's just this guy who doesn't know what's going on, but towards the end he has become an assassin. So
Yeah.
there was he progressed as a character, I guess.
Yeah. The modern day protagonist, Desmond, has his character developing and how he progresses from like being a regular bartender to this badass assassin who's going to save the world, kind of reflects on how Ezio develops as a character out there, right? Like very young,
Exactly.
immature, he sees his family dying in front of his eyes, and then he, takes up becomes an assassin, and his journey mentoring people, enlisting people into the brotherhood, all that, right? I think the parallel was very obvious, and they did it well, right?
They did really well. Yeah. And now the newer games, some of them have looked really good. Like I've always wanted to try out Origins because I'm a big fan of Egyptian settings and stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously because of the mummy movies.
Yeah.
But and Origins looks so beautiful, and it looks interesting to explore, and there's a story involving Cleopatra and the Magi and all that. But I have been reluctant because of everything I've heard about the new gameplay changes, right?
Yeah.
Like I hear like the newer games are a bit too grindy and repetitive.
Yes.
And
with level gating, with a little bit of level
gating, and they have removed the one-shot stealth kill.
Yes.
Which for me is like the biggest deal breaker, because like,
it is.
come on, if I take the time and the effort to sneak past all the guards in the camp, my reward should be an instant kill when I kill the captain or whatever. So that is like an instant deal breaker for me. And I also heard that the parkour has been simplified.
It is. You can basically climb anywhere and anything right now, right? There's no specific like ledges and stuff that you can climb and other places that you cannot. Like 90% of the environment you can climb around. So yeah.
But Valhalla seems to be in a setting that has no rooftop kind of chase sequences, right? And I find that really odd that they would find a setting that can't make use of the parkour. Why can't they set it somewhere where you can have that rooftop chase, right? Because those are some of the most entertaining parts of Assassin's Creed, when after you've killed your target, you have to run away.
Yeah, and the music kicks in, right? The music kicks in, and you're being chased by guards, archers are shooting at you, and you run and you hide in one of those gazebos or whatever, and you wait for things to cool down.
And another reason why I've been a bit reluctant is that they seem to focus more on mythology. Now, like we talked before, like what made the older games cool to me, at least, were that they were based on real events like the Crusades or the French Revolution and stuff like that. And then and even the Templar assassin conflict, right? That's based on conspiracy theories like the Freemasons and the Illuminati and stuff like that, And you got to meet people like Napoleon or Charles Darwin and stuff like that. Queen Victoria, I think, was in Syndicate. So and now you're getting into there's a Jack the Ripper storyline. There's all that kind of stuff, and but now you're getting into Greek and Norse mythology, and I feel like I get my Greek and Norse mythology fix from God of War, right? And I don't need Assassin's Creed to do that. I feel like Assassin's Creed could be rooted in real history. That's how I feel. What about you, Akira? What do you feel about this mythology focus with the new games?
It's kind of the same for me, because like when I saw this specifically happened when I saw the announcements and the first couple of trailers for Odyssey, because I was like, hey, they're going to have an Assassin's Creed game in ancient Greece. Like, this is like my favorite time period in history. And it's the Peloponnesian War, right? I would have preferred if they had it during the Persian War, where the Greeks were actually
Okay.
fighting together instead of like
Yeah,
at
yeah,
each
yeah.
other's throats. But, we can't choose. So, you know what? Peloponnesian War sounds cool. But then don't really think they utilized the time period, the characters, the events, the conflicts properly. When you take the entire game, it was a lot of filler. I think this was the first time I was really bored with some of the side quests in an Assassin's Creed game. Even Origins, some of the side quests were kind of okay. I mean, sure, there was like, okay, go here, kill this guard, bring my pet crocodile back, my daughter has been kidnapped, so something like that. But then again, some of the side quests are variety, but Odyssey, it was a lot of filler. And you walk into, and then the other thing is like, you go to a new area, right? You go to a new region and it flashes up, you discover this particular region, welcome to whatever, and it's kind of empty.
Okay.
That's why the history factor, like if they left it grounded in history, it would have been a better choice, I guess, rather than trying to bring in Minotaurs and Medusa and the Cyclopses and all that, right? It kind of went a bit overboard with mythology, I guess.
No, I'm sure this kind of stuff, I mean, what they could have done is have this mythological role-playing game thing, which they really seem to want to do.
Yeah.
Let them do that with a new game, right? Like that Phoenix Rising game.
Yes.
They should have that, separate. I feel like keep that separate, and and when you get to Valhalla, right? I just realized this now. The whole idea of a Viking goes against a secretive, stealthy assassin.
Yeah.
Right? Because Vikings are supposed to be like this loud and very reckless.
Yeah.
And running straight into a battle, and that doesn't sound like an assassin, because you're supposed to hide in the shadows and that sort of thing. And of course, with the newer games, you also get the infamous XP boosters and
I know,
people,
the microtransaction powered stuff. Yeah.
Like people complain that maybe they made the game world like so big and so grindy to sell the XP boosters.
It kind of was, especially in Odyssey, that was quite visible, right? Like it's like certain regions, you just go there, you have like 1 or 2 missions, not even main missions, mind you, and that's it. You discover something, you open a chest, you climb a vantage point, region is complete, right? It takes away the whole Assassin's Creed factor that we've come to love from the previous titles. And that sucks though, it really does. And Valhalla, now even you have not given it a go as of right
no
now, right?
I just kind of avoided the whole thing.
Yeah, because from what I've heard, okay, they kind of brought down the scale a little bit because people had the general complaint. Ancient Greece is fine, it was big but empty, so they kind of brought down the scale a little bit. But I don't know how they brought it down and what did they do to actually fill in the world, how to make it interesting and more approachable, right? I mean, I have not played Red Dead Redemption 2, but from what I've seen and the reviews that I've read and everything that I've seen and read online, I know that it's a fun world to explore, right? No matter where you go, you kind of see something, you run into people, you get into conversations, right? You explore, you discover.
Yeah, that's the thing with Red Dead. The Red Dead Redemption 2, I think the greatest achievement is the open world. Yeah. Because there are so many random stuff that happens as you walk by. Yeah. And it doesn't feel scripted. It feels like something's happening and I just happen to run into it. Yeah. It feels so natural. And sometimes you engage in something because you see it in the distance. It's not something you see on the map. You see like smoke rising above the trees and you're like, oh, there must be something there, and you go check it out. Or you hear somebody screaming and you run that way. You see a light and then you walk towards the light during nighttime. So that kind of thing makes it feel very natural. But I mean, what I've heard in Valhalla is it's still sort of stuff that lights up on the map, and or you go to this colored little dot on the map and something is there, right? And you talked about how they were going to be more focused and bring down the scale, but everything I've heard on checking YouTube and stuff like that is that people are still complaining that it's too big. The game goes on for too long, and a lot of people seem to kind of give up on it. And it's so weird because everyone keeps telling them to rein in the scale and be more focused, but they seem to be making it longer and longer. And I don't know why they keep doing it. And going back to the earlier games, like it seemed like there was a lot of useless stuff to collect, and there were activities that weren't that interesting, but you didn't have to do all that. But I think in the newer games, because of the leveling system and where some areas are high level, you have to level up to reach there. So you have to do a lot of stuff that you might not want to just to level up. So you can be on the right power level or whatever to fight the enemies. So that is something I've heard. Now, again, I haven't played the game, but that when I hear something like that, that doesn't make me want to play the game,
makes you want to,
give
it a rain check of sorts, right? Kind of drag your, the time.
Exactly. Yeah. And I heard that the skill tree is like really bad because so what happens in the game is that now they are presenting the game as if it's a role-playing game, RPG. But what I've heard is that if you play the game to the end, you will probably end up unlocking all the skills, which means that your Evo is going to be identical to somebody else who has also finished the game, right? But the whole point of an RPG is that you should be able to create something unique, right? A unique build. That's what people play RPGs for. And I also heard that a lot of people, because the skill tree is so vast and so complicated, they don't even want to bother. So they simply turn on auto assign. And if you turn that on, you're going to be identical to everyone else.
True.
So it's sort of this, they are trying to be an RPG, but it's sort of like an illusion of choice thing, and I feel like they're trying to appeal to the Witcher 3 fans, but Ubisoft doesn't really understand how the role-playing system is supposed to work.
Exactly, right? I mean, like, even if you leave aside the concept of perks or skill trees, like you have in other role-playing games, let's say still, fine, somehow we managed to unlock everything. There should be like choices which should be meaningful, and these choices should affect the outcome, not just of one or two quests, but for the story. Like, you take games like Witcher and you take a franchise like Fallout, where the choices that you make, the decisions, just saving a guy here would mean a massive change later on, right? The choices that you make in Odyssey or Origins, or maybe even in Valhalla, they don't really make that much of an impact. Okay, sure, Odyssey had 7 major choices, I think 7 or 6 major decisions that you're supposed to take. They will decide like kind of like the final outcome of sorts, but that's it, and that was just it, right? And that's bad. Like role-playing games, we go into role-playing games expecting to change stuff, like if you take like BioWare stuff like Mass Effect, right?
People completely different storylines.
The way you get to play it, like your own shepherd, right? You get to customize the choices that you make. What are the decisions called? Renegade and
Paragon
and Renegade,
also
right?
and also like which characters die, which you save, and they will be around in future games, and so
this
that aspect of
RPG light kind of a thing, which is not but they go all out with the gear though. That's the other thing. Like they go all out with the RPG's gear system, the commons and the rares and the legendaries, which again is a problem. Like you said, the whole level gating thing and the grinding occurs because of that, right? You can't go anywhere you want and like start stabbing random people in the back, because surprise, they are like way above your
overpowered
level,
right?
I mean, because back then, let's say Black Flag or Assassin's Creed 2 or Brotherhood, Revelations, whatever, I mean, if you're being sneaky and stabby, you can do that, right? You can go around.
Yeah, you can sneak up on anyone and kill them
Exactly.
with one shot.
Right.
So it kind of rewarded you for playing like an assassin,
Yeah.
which is really cool. Talking about scale, right? Like we've seen that the newer games are getting really big and
Yeah.
feels maybe even impossible to finish. So I feel like it's kind of logical that Ubisoft maybe ended up with this whole new games as a service thing. So they are now making an Assassin's Creed game that you probably will never get to finish.
Probably it's Infinite. What is it called?
Infinity, right?
Infinity, right?
Is that what it's called?
Assassin's Creed Infinity. I think it's called Infinity.
Okay, that seems like a joke.
I mean that's a fitting title, right? Assassin's Creed
Yeah,
Infinity.
I guess.
Right. So yeah, like you said,
Yeah.
that's the problem with live service titles. They know for a fact that they can monetize it as long as they want to, right? And without adding substantial single player content or like PvE content where you can group up, team up or whatever and play against, that's I mean, that's where they really have to improve. Like, look what happened to the Avengers game that they, recently released as a service. It kind of fell flat. The player base kind of not dwindled, it just went straight down. It plummeted right after a couple of weeks or so.
Ubisoft is going to try to monetize this. That's probably what they're trying to do. And no, it is interesting to see because we still don't know details about this, right? So one thing I thought they might be able to do, because I've heard that they are involving multiple studios.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm wondering maybe if they can kind of use that and have each studio make smaller, more contained stories, like maybe in an episodic format, maybe. Yeah. Kind of maybe you'll be able to log into this like you're logging into the Animus or something, and they present you with like a selection screen. So they kind of did this in Unity, where when you boot up Unity, you had this selection screen, and it made you feel like you can choose one of these experiences, right? And different time periods, different historical characters. Of course, it was just like a tease in Unity. It wasn't real. But it almost seems like that's like a prophecy of what was to come in the future, maybe, right? And each thing is like a small campaign, maybe focused on one location, and they can periodically add more content, maybe. So I thought that might be, it might have potential. But
if they actually
the thing is,
decide to go that take that route, right? So
but the thing is, like, Ubisoft has now become the greedy corporate entity that is Abstergo Industries.
I mean, right now you play one Ubisoft game, you technically played all of them, right? Like big maps, big somewhat empty maps, flat storylines. You have Watch Dogs, you have all the Tom Clancy sub-franchises.
Far Cry.
You have Far Cry, you have Assassin's Creed. Ubisoft is becoming very, I don't know, I want to use the word stale here, but I don't know whether that's the correct term.
It's homogeneous, right? Like,
yes.
Is that the word for it? Everything is sharing its features with the other games, and you can't really tell them apart anymore.
Yeah.
So
Ubisoft, Ubiverse, right?
Yeah.
Ubiverse.
I mean, and kind of they're stripping away what makes it unique. Like we talked about the core pillars and stuff, and you end up with something that seems like every other game they release. And it's kind of sad that, like, I don't know whether, because I heard that Valhalla is very successful, like it sold a lot. So that means we are not gonna get a new Assassin's Creed game, that goes back to those core pillars and things like that. We probably might never get another one like that.
True. We can wish, we can hope, but we can just we'll have to wait and see.
They might even completely drop the whole thing and go with this live service thing. That might be the future.
Probably. That's going to be a disaster though, right? I mean,
yeah.
I guess all we can do right now is wait and see what the franchise has in store for us in the near future, right? When they make proper announcements, make more reveals, put out a teaser or a trailer maybe, and see where Assassin's Creed is going to be taken to next. All right, so I guess we did cover a lot of ground. Like we talked about the series as a whole, and we talked about what we like, what we don't really like, and the body that's almost on a lot of fans' mind would be, where are they going to take it next? What are they going to do with this live service title? So yeah, we'll just have to buckle down and wait and see what's gonna happen, right? So yeah, thank you, Nuan, for joining me, and
Thank you for having me, Akira.
talking about Assassin's Creed, one of our all-time favorite franchises. And what do you guys think? Do you guys think that they might actually go back to their roots, or will they stick to a monetization, a method that's easily that can be monetized easily, or a live service feature, right? Let us know.
Also let us know maybe what your favorite Assassin's Creed is.
Game is, yeah, right.
Yeah,
We would
yeah,
love
yeah.
to know. Yes, and so with that, we will be signing off, and we will see you guys next time. See y'all.
See you.